In South Africa, the month of August marks the celebration of women and their contribution to society. It is also a month to raise societal awareness about gender-based violence, gender inequality, domestic violence, mental and physical abuse of women, and many challenges women continue to face today. This is precisely what this video explores: the struggle for women liberation. Hello amazing people, Takira Mwashi here. A warm welcome to my channel, a place where future leaders come to get inspired. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. As always, a big thank you for your amazing support. Remember guys, this is your learning channel, your learning platform. Keep spreading the good news. Give me a shout using the link down below. And don't forget to leave a comment. In this video, I will walk you through assignment 2, the last assignment for this module, that is ENG 2601. It examines the media's treatment of women in politics and society. Also watch my favorite channel on gender inequality by one of my favorite writers, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You're gonna love it. Click the link in the right corner of your screen right now. This tutorial has been broken into 3 parts. Part 1 deals with the target audience and context. Part 2 examines the writer's use of specific linguistic features and rhetorical devices. And Part 3 looks at support evidence from both texts. Without any further delay, let's get straight to the assignment. This assignment comprises of the writing task, that is the long essay. And the assignment task uses certain command words. And these are the command words that I've put down there for you to note. The first one there is read. So you got to do the reading bit of the texts that you've been given before you even embark on doing the assignment. It's important that you actually put a spin onto your reading. Think about your reading as critical reading, critical analysis of what both texts are looking at. Underline those words that stand out to signal or signpost what's going on in the texts so that you can use that later onwards. The next command word says you need to write. So you read and then you write. Okay? Straightforward. The third one there is analyze. That's quite important here. You got to understand, after reading, what both writers or both texts are addressing. What issues stand out in these 2 texts. Once you've done that, you can begin to compare. That is, write down the similarities. How are they similar? In fact, why are they similar? Ask yourself those kind of questions. Remember what I said to you in my previous videos, the very first video that I did on critical writing and reading, and also the later ones on 5 WH questions. You might want to revisit those to see how that works. So as you compare the similarities of both texts, you will also figure out the differences. It's your task to actually indicate to the reader or your lecturer why such differences occur in both texts, and possibly highlight why those differences matter. And don't forget what the main assignment is trying to address here, so that you stay within the confinement of your task. So the assignment question, I just read it down there, is read texts A and B and write an essay of 600 to 800 words in which you analyze the theme of the texts, comparing textual and statistical data. Your response must reflect similarities and differences in both texts. That's worth 100 marks. So this is very, very clear here. You need to analyze the theme. What's this all about? What is each of the articles or the writing addressing? Start thinking about also who the target audience is in this case, and how the writers use language, including those features and rhetorical devices to convey their messages. And in this assignment, which is slightly different to your assignment 1, there's a kind of introduction to statistical data, which is another device that a lot of writers use to convince readers. Statistics is quite big in academic articles, so pay attention to the last was text B, where in statistical data is used. You need to point out how that conveys the issues women face today, especially in leadership and politics, so to say. And as you do that, you are actually going to be reflecting those similarities and differences between the two texts. Consider the attitude that is conveyed by the two texts or writers or two sources. Look at the language, the technicality. What sort of language does text A use? Is it simple? Is it technical? What does that suggest about the type of audience who would pay attention to such language? And you do the same for text B while you talk about the differences. So you would need to plan and write a piece based on both texts in about 1.5 pages. Okay, let's go on to the next part there. This is really your first part of the the assignment, which is asking for you to look at the target audience and context or contexts of both texts A and B. What that means is that you need to answer the question, which group of people are the writers targeting or addressing? What's the background of their message? Let's look at part 2. Part 2 it is. In this particular section of the assignment or question, or one of the areas you need to address if you want to really get good marks for this assignment, is you need to examine how the writers use specific linguistic features. When we talk about linguistic features, we are referring to linguistic devices. Okay? And I'll give you more detail as we go with this. And rhetorical devices to convey purpose and enhance meaning. So what you need to do is to comment, if you really want to convince the reader, comment on the effects of specific words and phrases, i.e. how certain verbs are used, the use of specific linguistic features and rhetorical devices stroke techniques. Some of those examples that stand out when you think about academic writing, or in this case, this particular assignment, you're looking at devices such as irony, alliteration, paradox, metaphor. So it's your task, your job to actually single out those devices and not just stop at just singling out those devices, actually show how the writers use them and what they're trying to do. The effect of different sentence forms. I see. That is short and long sentences. What's the effect of using long and short sentences in this instance in text A and B? And then look at the similarities and differences, as I said earlier, in both texts. So really, what it is that you're meant to be doing here is which methods do the writers of both sources use to convey their attitudes? You are meant to explain, comment on, and analyze how two writers use language to achieve effect or effects and influence the reader. That is the writer's words and phrases and sentences, so sentence forms. An example here, compound sentences, complex sentences, and all those language techniques or rhetorical devices, like I've mentioned a few, imagery, alliteration, so on and so forth. Let's go to part 3. Part 3 it is. This is a short piece, just a reminder of something that you might forget to do as you write, and as a result you might lose a couple of marks, actually some very good marks. So it's all about the evidence from both texts. What this requires for you to do is to select appropriate references from both texts to back up your argument. If you're talking about an issue in text A, for instance, and you make a point, make sure you find a quotation in the text that supports that claim. So you make a point, you explain, you give evidence. So you kind of develop your argument by doing so. But remember, these are two texts or two sources that you need to play with. While you say one thing about one text, also say another thing about the other text. But each time, remember to use those appropriate references. This is really useful because it convinces the reader, it keeps the reader reading, it dazzles them, and it earns you lots of marks. So I'm not going to go any further than this. I will elaborate, I'll expand these ideas in my next video where I show you the mechanics of getting yourself super marks. Okay, thank you so much again for always being amazing. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember to share the video. Don't miss my next video on how to craft a super essay and get the marks you deserve.